Welcome back, everybody, to our playoff edition of the Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike,
John.
and we have, I don't know what we're going to talk about tonight. I mean, we only have a playoff game tomorrow, so,
Only
whatever.
the biggest game of the last, 12 months to talk about.
Yeah. Um, so Yeah, so we're pretty excited about this. Got a little nervous feeling, a little bit of exciting feeling. It's probably both instances will just get more intense as the day goes on tomorrow. We're recording this on New Year's Eve, so the game is tomorrow on New Year's Day. We're playing the 8:45, I believe kickoff is. It sounds like it should follow exactly after the Rose Bowl, so I probably will be, I saw some people say 8. I'm assuming that's pregame stuff, so it'll be probably closer 8:45 when
8:52, 9:00, something like that.
Yeah. All right. One thing before we get going, you might want to come. I don't know. You might want to get a little closer to your microphone. You're a little lower now than you were a few minutes ago.
How's this?
A little bit better.
Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, you sound better now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So So I think we're gonna run this episode. So we'll talk a little bit about. I think we'll start off. We'll talk a little bit about the Alabama Notre Dame game, just our general thoughts. It'll be the first game we watch, and then we will get into all of our thoughts and stuff on the Clemson Tigers. I do recommend, if you haven't watched it yet or listened to it, listen to our previous show, which was we actually did a breakdown of all the different position groups of both Clemson and Ohio State, and really what Ohio State needs to be looking at each position group that Clemson has, what they possibly could throw at you, and just trying to build on last year's game and hopefully bring home a W this year.
Yes.
All right, so Notre Dame, Alabama. I think we both feel right now, especially after we watched that Clemson game. My biggest concern after I watched the Clemson game against Notre Dame, this previous one, that I still don't think that Notre Dame has enough athletes to really deal with Alabama's passing game, and I think it's gonna. I think this is the blowouts. I mean, I could be wrong. Notre Dame, I mean, teams surprise teams. I mean, they definitely, I'm not saying they don't have bad players. I'm not saying, I was an Ohio State fan here when they beat Miami in 2002. So, the teams that can't get beat, that there's no way they can beat, there's times they fall. So, I mean, I'm not saying Notre Dame can't do it, but it just seems like the deck is really stacked against them.
So, yeah, I see where you're going. I know you're not saying that Notre Dame is going to win with the whole Miami comparison, but Ohio State had players on their team, and that's not to take anything away from Notre Dame, but that was mostly a case of people didn't watch the film on Ohio State, and they didn't respect Ohio State for the conference that they played in. I mean, Notre Dame they don't match up to what Alabama can do. Now, Alabama does not have an overly impressive defense. We know this. Like, we saw them against Florida at the end of the year. You saw them against Ole Miss at the beginning of the year. And then LSU even scored some points on them. So they're not overly impressive defensively, but Notre Dame's really good running the ball, which we know that's where Alabama struggled in the Ole Miss game. But is Notre Dame good enough running the ball to make up for not having, the same athletes as Alabama? And that I don't know, because I think Notre Dame, to have a realistic shot of keeping it close, they need to be a stronger passing team and go vertical and be able to hit guys for long touchdowns. And I don't think they have that ability. They got great tight ends. Their tight ends, they played very well against Clemson both times, but I don't think that's enough to be able to keep them in the game.
I mean, the change in offense, over the years, the way I look at it, and you kind of just brought this up, is just, to me, I mean, Ole Miss ran on Alabama, but Alabama, to me, it's again Ohio State, it's Clemson, teams that are especially Ohio State and Alabama for much longer, Clemson over the last several years, these are teams that can stop the run. And, I just, you got to be able to really stretch the field to really challenge those types of defenses. I'm not saying that, you can't eventually beat them up running the ball. I mean, when you think back 2014 about, Zeke just, ended up having a great game against Alabama, but there's also had been a lot of respect to how far Cardell could throw the ball. I mean, he had a big touchdown pass to Devin, and then he had, I believe, Jalen Marshall a couple times on some really deep crossing routes.
Well, and he hit Devin for a really big gain also that got him down to the goal line.
So, I mean, you can't bring safeties up against that. And then that helps your running game. Then you could really wear somebody down. I just don't see where Notre Dame has that. And I just think they're going to be facing 8 guys in the box the whole night. And Alabama will probably feast on that defensively.
Yeah. And I don't think Ian Book, I don't think he can't make plays because I've seen him make plays. I think a lot of people are lower on him than what I am. I think he's a decent quarterback that can do some things, but I just I don't think they have enough on the outsides to hurt Alabama's defense enough.
And that's where I'm at, because I actually don't have a problem with Ian Book. I actually think if Ian Book had a couple of receivers like maybe some of the other 3 teams had, he could challenge some of these teams down the field. And I think he has a good enough arm. I mean, their offense is not built around that. And their defense is good, but again, their defense is, they don't have the athletes at all in the passing game to really challenge Alabama's receivers. And when you can't keep a game close, that's where you're going to really, if they take Notre Dame out of their running offense, I don't see where Notre Dame is going to be able to score the points with them.
Now, so short of Devontae Smith returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and then one of the other receivers jumping on his back and him twisting his ankle and being out for the rest of the game, what chances are we talking about Notre Dame actually having in this one? Like, what can they do? Do you think that they could get this in a position that, let's say cover this, beat the spread for one, but is there any possibility they can get this to be a game in the fourth quarter?
Right now, I'm saying no. I just don't see it. Now, come playoff time, I always respect every team in the playoff. Even when I think it's a mismatch, I always give the team that I think is a big underdog always a 10% chance in these games, because, like I said, you never know what happens. I mean, if Notre Dame gets a lucky shot on what's his face on Mac Jones, early in this game, is it Mac Jones? Yeah. And he knocked him out of the game. That could change the whole game. You never know. And there's different, what makes football so great in comparison to some of the other sports, you're playing one game and compared to a series, right. And where little things could happen in a game that could have huge, effects on that game, and the other team, and that team that's the big underdog could win that game. So, there's a shot. There's definitely a chance. I just don't see it happening. I think this is easily a 2 to 4 touchdown game. But I don't think it's ever going to be closer than 2 touchdowns. And even if it ends as a 2 touchdown, I think those are garbage time touchdowns that Alabama's already secured the win, and there's no chance Notre Dame's coming back.
So you would be more surprised if this was a 3-point game as opposed to a 30-point game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so.
I think I'm there with you on that one. I don't see. I'm really scared about the Notre Dame secondary. Clemson, when they got in space, even on like stuff that was in front of the Notre Dame secondary, that they were just using what Notre Dame gave them, and they were still beating them to the corners and getting touchdowns out of it. Like, that's where I just don't see where they match up against that passing attack of Alabama, that this can get real ugly real quick.
Yeah. And even if that crazy thing does happen and Devontae Smith gets hurt, I still think Alabama has other receivers. I don't think Notre Dame is in threat like the '06 Buckeyes were. That it seemed
Right.
like once, I mean, and that was nothing against Gonzo. Gonzo just wasn't the primary receiver in the offense. You have to have somebody that could stretch the field to give for Gonzo to do what Gonzo does best. And Alabama has other receivers that can stretch the field.
And I mean, if it did get into the point where it was some sort of like smash mouth, running the game, that it still might be a shootout on the ground because Alabama's defense still, like, even in the run game, they aren't the greatest. But I mean,
Yeah.
I would take Najee Harris over what Notre Dame
Yeah.
has if it even turned into that type of game. So I mean, I realize
Yeah.
that's not Nick Saban and Alabama's go-to anymore, but still, if push came to shove, put all the chips in the center of the table,
He's
that's who I would
he's
go with them too.
even in a passing offense, he's still he's still a great running back to have on a team. And when and Alabama maybe over the last several years have become more of a passing team. They're still not a Big 12 passing team.
Oh, I
I
know.
mean, you know, when he gets up by a couple, you'll get a heavy dose of Najee Harris coming in the second half. I mean, Nick
Yeah.
Saban still knows how to milk a clock when he needs to start milking the
Right.
clock.
If
So
if Saban has to dial up a smash mouth run game, he'll do it. And honestly, I mean, I no disrespect to ETN, but out of the four running backs that are remaining, I mean, if I had one that, was my horse I got to hitch my wagon to and ride to the national title, I'd go Najee Harris over any of them.
oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, I think we're both in the same spot. I mean, it'll be interesting. I'd like to see how Brian Kelly coaches this game. I was one of the few, though. I will say I was, everybody remembers that final score a couple years ago against Clemson, but there was some bad referee and replay mistakes in that first half of that game, and Notre
Go
Dame actually
figure,
played
right?
that game. They actually played that first half a lot closer than a lot of people I think remember. That there was some bad breaks that went their way early in that game where what was it? They turned over, they had a fumble, um or they
Was it?
overcall. It was
Was it?
something. It was
I think what it was, if and I could be completely off because that was a while back. We were watching it together. I feel like it was after Notre Dame got their field goal. They kicked the ball off. Clemson fumbled it. Notre Dame recovered it, but then they said that the guy was out of bounds or something like that.
yeah. It
It
was
was
something like
it was something odd like that.
and like to me it was like no way, it's definitely a fumble. And the replay booth, even, I mean, it was like, I mean, if I'm remembering it correctly, and I even think they had a second replay screw up on that one too that year.
Mhm.
That I think that was even worse, those calls, than what them overturning Jordan Fuller's touchdown last year. I mean, that was just like a bad,
Jordan
like,
Fuller's one was bad.
yeah. But
That was
I
bad.
mean, I didn't even think those were even worse. Like, I mean, especially one of them, and and I think it was that fumble, and it was just an awful call. And then it was just like that bad stuff happened. And I'm not saying that they would have, it would have stayed a game that, Clemson was the better team on the field.
Right.
But I mean, and that was always the one I was protesting, that I felt Notre Dame. I mean, even though both Notre Dame and Oklahoma, showed a lot of reasons why neither one of them should have been in the playoff, and Ohio State and Georgia should have been replacing them. Notre Dame was always the one. I know they were the third seed, but I was always like, no, Notre Dame should be out. They're not going to match up with any of these the other three teams, and Ohio State should be in over Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't. Oklahoma probably would have beat Notre Dame up too, just because you're going with those athletes again, and eventually Notre Dame stopped scoring on them. But maybe they
Yeah.
could have. Maybe they could have ran on Oklahoma because Oklahoma's defense was, not good that year, and I know ours wasn't either. But let's face facts: ours is better than Oklahoma is. So
Yeah. I just think that, and just my last this thing with Notre Dame is just that Notre Dame still reminds me of the team that they were in 2005 when they played Ohio State. They don't have the athletes where you need to have the athletes, and they don't have athletes in their secondary, and they might get some big, tall receivers and big, tall tight ends and throwing a bunch of 6'5" guys around the field. I mean, that looks good on paper, but you need some speed to go with them because you need to, when you get your guys in space, sometimes you come up against good secondaries that it's not just about throwing it deep down the field anymore. And,
Right. Well,
and
that's
I
what.
just,
Go ahead. Sorry.
that was just what I was to say. I don't see that. I don't see Notre Dame having that, and I still don't see them having it. They haven't had it since I don't know. Rocket Ismail, it seems like, was the last time they actually had you know, a speed
Yeah.
guy in their receiving core. It's
Well,
just I don't know.
I mean, like I go back and like you said, like I think it's the same team as '05. I completely agree with you on that. Like '05, '06, they made it. They got killed by LSU in a BCS game. We got 12, or Alabama beats them up 15 when they play Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl again. It's just Clemson in 18 this is the same team, and I think it's going to be the same outcome. They're going to get beat up badly. Of course, Ohio State's the one that always lets them off the hook and, lets
Yeah.
those games get
Let's
closer
them
to
come back.
what they really
Let's
are.
them come back. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
but
we used to call the Jim Tressel blowout when he'd go up by 3-4 scores and then it would be like a 10-point win at the end of the game. And yeah,
if that, yeah, Urban Meyer did that against Notre Dame, probably because he likes Notre Dame. He also did that at Washington, his last game there, which I think he was just going around shaking hands at the end of that.
well, I don't think Urban had his headset on the entire second half until like the last minute of the game when he actually realized that he had to start coaching again. I think he was acting like he was the president of the United States.
Just go around kissing babies.
Campaign trail. He was just shaking everybody's hand the whole.
Because we could have beat Washington by 40 points that day, or not 40, but at least we could have beat them by 3 scores. I mean, that was just letting them back in the game. I'm glad they held on to win that one. That would have been a bad way to go out. I don't know. Urban might have rescinded his retirement if they would have lost that game.
So, is the point spread still 20-21? I mean, that's where originally was put at. It's gotten worse. I haven't looked at it in a while. Like
I felt like it came down to 19 and a half.
Okay.
So we'll say 20. I mean, I think it's 19 and a half.
I mean, I've been saying I kind of feel like this is a 45-14 game for a while now. And I think I'm going to go with that. That's what I feel like that's going to be. I think it's going to be pretty easy. I see Alabama up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter and them being up 28-35-7 going into halftime. And then it's just going to be, an easy coast in the second half and where it's just going to be a lot of Najee Harris being thrown at people.
Yeah. I still go back and forth with the score because I think it all depends on how Notre Dame, how they can withstand, the pressure, if they can answer a touchdown back. Because remember, they scored 47 on Clemson, albeit in 2 overtimes, but they did put up some points against a good defense. That was missing pieces, but I don't know if Alabama's defense is better than that defense is missing some pieces. So there is the opportunity there that they can score some points. I'm kind of leaning more like you. I don't think it'll be quite as bad. Would you say 45-14?
Yeah, 45-14.
I'm saying 45-24. So I'll give Notre Dame 10 more points than what you are, but they still lose. Alabama still covers the spread.
Okay. Yep. I think that's falls in line with our feelings with that game. Now we'll get into the game that matters the most for us.
The only one that really matters.
I mean, this is always, even though I will turn on the national, if God forbid, knock on wood, we don't pull it out tomorrow. I mean, I still will watch a little bit of the national championship game, but I don't pay as close as attention in those games especially when you're coming off a loss, like I had no interest last year in watching LSU and Clemson. The only reason why I turned it on some was just because I wanted to watch Joe Burrow light up Clemson a little bit.
And he did too. And he did.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the only reason why I had that game on, and I only turned that on, I think, after LSU scored a couple touchdowns. I turned it on for a little bit, but then I don't know.
I mean, how much interest would you really have though watching Alabama Clemson for a 4th national title?
No, none, 0.
I'd watch it because I always watch them, but after a while, it's like, man, this is getting boring.
those are Monday games, and it takes a lot. Like Monday, I'm always the most tired in the week because I sleep in pretty long on Sundays, so I don't get a lot of sleep Sunday nights normally, and when I do get sleep, it's usually melatonin helping me fall asleep. So
Medicated
I'm
a little bit.
yeah, I'm really tired when I work on Mondays, and normally Mondays are always the nights I go to bed early during the week, and yeah, and unless it's Ohio State playing in that game, I don't see where it's going to be much of a difference.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So.
All right, but so let's get Ohio State to that game. So tomorrow, round in the modern era, this is round 4. It's like in the Woody era, this would be round 5, or round
right.
Yeah, round 5.
Since the late 70s, this is the 5th time.
Never beat them, so it's a monkey that we need to get off the back. So I mean, I know we did the position breakdowns, like just your general thoughts, like if for Ohio State, what they'll be holding up the Sugar Bowl trophy at the end of the night, what's like just the main thing you think of that they need to do to win this game?
Main thing is they can't let Clemson stop the run. You got to be all impose your run. So offensive line has to control the line of scrimmage. I mean, I'm still at it that Trevor Lawrence is going to be able to score points. He might be able to answer points with you. So I think you got to, I mean, there's so much you have to do to win, but I really think that's the most important thing is getting that run established and keeping it going. Keep yourself in third and short situations that Justin's legs can pick up first downs, that a draw is still something that is plausible in a situation like that. Or even on third and long, calling a draw to keep Clemson honest. But
yeah,
that's really, I mean, that's where I'm at is you got to run the ball. You got to try to dominate. I know they have a much better defensive line in a sense than last year because they got some real studs, but they're young. And your guys are not young. Your offensive linemen, they're great run blockers. So I think, I mean, that would be my biggest thing is just, and that we were in position to win it last year because JK was running on those guys in the first half. So, sustain that in the second half when they make their adjustments, make yours, find ways to, when Venables starts calling all his different stuff out there, his different formations, you got to be able to make the adjustments too. And you got to find what you can do to get him out of that formation. Yeah. So, I mean, what about you?
To me, the big thing is control what you can control in this game. When you get the opportunity to go score touchdowns, go score touchdowns. In last year's game, I mean, JK ends up getting hurt. Yes. It was a bad, even though the targeting rule in general, how it's set up is bad. I don't know if the call itself was bad, but I don't think he deserved to have been thrown out of the game for Shaun Wade. Jordan Fuller fumble for touchdown called back, god awful. But if you score touchdowns instead of those field goals early in the game when you had opportunity and you had momentum, who knows if any of that stuff happens afterwards? And and even if all 3 of those things still happen, if you put two of those are touchdowns, you win at the end of the day. If, one of them was touchdown, you probably still win. I mean, it's just a different game. And so, you got to score touchdowns when you get the opportunities to score touchdowns. And, a team against Clemson, you're not playing Illinois where you might get 10 opportunities to score a touchdown in a game. Like, a lower level Big Ten team or an out of conference game against a MAC school where you might be in the red zone, 10, 12 times in a game. If you get to the red zone, put 6 on the board because, at the end of the day, that's what's going to win you the game.
Yes. Agreed. And they had their opportunities last year. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, we didn't score them last year. We're not going to score them this year. But I mean, we had chances. JK dropped 2 touchdowns on that first drive. If you look back at some of those plays, I mean, on the one that he swings it out to JK, if he throws it to, Garrett Wilson slanting in, There's a
Yeah.
touchdown there. I think the tight end was wide open of that play. So there's looks there that they could have hit on. It's just you've got to be
Yeah.
able to find them.
Yeah. And me and you both were, and it was, what's a Ryan Day Homer or whatever that's on Twitter. He
Hmm.
was it's a Twitter account we follow, but he actually had a good thread about it, and I know we both looked at it. It's just a lot of the different things that I wonder is in Ryan Day's back of his head and Ohio State's back of their heads that they might try to set up a couple situations similar to last year and see if they could get Clemson to go after the guys that they had at the position they went for and actually go for the correct call this year. And,
Yeah.
because they had some opportunities and outside of the, you know, I mean, I know the one catch was very difficult for JK to make. I put that one on Fields. Even though JK got both of his hands on it, it's not Garrett Wilson touching the ball. If that was Garrett Wilson, he dropped it. I would have blamed that on Wilson. Be like, if you want to go to the NFL to be a receiver, you got to go make the catch. Devin Smith would have put a finger up and spun the ball on his finger and made that catch.
Devin Smith would have put one hand out, one finger out, looked the opposite way, and the ball would have stuck to his finger. So
yeah, so. I mean, I give JK a break on that one. He is a running back, even though he's a good pass catching running back. It's still that's not an easy play for a running back to make. But on the other one, the screen pass, he had 6. He knew he had 6. It was written all over him. It was the most perfect call in the history of calls. And he had 3 offensive linemen in front of him, and no Clemson players reacting. I mean, he was walking to the end zone.
He would have walked into the end zone for sure. Yeah.
And
yeah, so, and I think Fields, so another thing, and I mean, I know the one thing they got to do, but Fields really be quick. And that's not necessarily, and I know it's check 1, check 2, run, but check 1, check 2, dump it off to your running back because they have those delayed blitzes. That's what they do. They come at you from those, different angles and they let you as long as you're going to do it, they'll let you throw to your running back on the flats there. So, swing it over to them, make it so they stop feeling they can blitz you like that. Make them respect you and do stuff like that.
And Tom Allen and Pat Fitzgerald both really got to Fields this year on delayed blitzes. And, that was something that, they both ran those a lot against him. And Fitzgerald even blitzed more than he normally does. And I mean, he had no problem, and he was doing the same thing. They made Fields make his once he got back in, then they whatever side he was on, wherever the opening was, that's where the blitzer came from, and they were ready for it. And Ohio State wasn't ready for it to a point, and Justin just needs to be a little quicker. I mean, the delayed blitzes are made to be a disadvantage against offensive linemen. Offensive linemen are sometimes you get those blitzes, sometimes you can't get those blitzes. It's just, when you're already engaged with somebody, you don't always have the quick eyes to be able to find where, the blitzer's coming from. And, so Fields, those are on him. He has to, we have to live with the fact that he holds the ball. He's going to get sacked tomorrow night. I mean, it is what it is. I'm not gonna, scream that, hey, run the ball. I mean, I've done that enough with them.
You're still going to scream it though. You are.
Yeah, I will. And but I just, make better decisions. If 80% of the time you're getting rid of the ball quick, you're seeing the blitz and you get rid of the ball quick, and maybe that other 20% of the time you're taking a couple sacks. I mean, try not to get into a lot of long and down situations because that's where they're going to hurt you on third down. And so that's, make better first and second down decisions as a quarterback. And that just makes third down so much easier for you because the coach can do a lot with third down then. And it's because when you can get into a third and shorts and even third and medium a little bit at times, it just makes the decision, what plays the call so much easier on the coaching staff.
And, honestly, going back to kind of where I was with the run game, if your offensive line, if you can move off of that defensive line and get up to those linebackers, you're going to make those safeties have to start playing downhill. And then you could try, quick stuff vertical over the top over those safeties, get Olave or Wilson matched up there.
Yeah.
So
All right.
That's a big play.
Yeah, on the defensive side of the ball. So last year, our biggest issues were definitely, when Trevor Lawrence started adapting to the game a lot better. Travis Etienne wasn't getting, running the ball easily against Ohio State's defense. So they came at him, and they did. They got their linebackers out of position. They got the safety. Fuller not as much, but once Wade got kicked out of the game, they picked a lot on that that Seven Banks. They picked a lot on him because I believe he was the one that came in. And then they got the linebackers out of position. So how do you fix that? Because I think that's definitely the point of attack again for Clemson.
Well, you might play more zone to try to keep those guys in front of you so they can't, hit the big play. I don't know. I think your defensive line is suited that it can help you out a lot. What I've seen from Haskell Garrett and Tommy Togiai, and albeit again small sample size, so we don't know what they're going to do against a better team. But I certainly don't think that this I don't know why I said Penn State. This Clemson team is someone that could stop them throughout an entire game. Maybe I was thinking about what Tommy did to Penn State. So I think they can get their penetration, and I think it could get ETN off his game. I think it can make Lawrence, go outside. Now, is that enough, though? Is that penetration enough that you would stay in the bulk of man coverage? I don't know, because that's where Lawrence killed you last year, and that's where ETN killed you, is once you got your backs to all those guys. So I'm a little worried about that, but I think that's still where Lawrence kind of struggles the most, is when, and especially these receivers aren't big bodies like last year's receivers. So Wade and Banks might be able to push, they might be able to jam these guys just as well as Okudah and Arnett did. And if you're getting that pressure up the middle, it could be a long day for Trevor Lawrence.
No.
I'm scared there, though, with Marcus Williamson head up on Amari Rodgers.
Yeah,
that scares me.
I think with the way I would like to see him, and with Ohio State, it's one or the other. I think where I would like to see him go with is I'd like to see him run some sort of hybrid defenses in the back end. Like I wouldn't mind seeing Wade and Seven Banks play man to man on the outside, but do some sort of zone, like maybe a 2-2, like kind of in the middle where you drop your linebackers, and you have two linebackers and two safeties right there in the middle of the field. And, where Lawrence really has to make, if he's going to go to the middle of the field, he's going to have a guy underneath and a guy over top that is going to be watching that. And then just, live with what you got to live with Wade and, Seven Banks on the outside of Clemson's receivers, which they're not as good this year on the outside. If they end up making plays down the field on you, and Lawrence, if he's able to pick the two corners apart, then you adjust at that point. But right now, I think the easiest way to attack our defense is in the middle. So I would be like, that's where you got to worry about first.
Do you think Ohio State, did they prepare too much last year trying to stop the two big receivers? Was that too much of a focus of the game plan?
It might have been, but that also, I don't think Clemson showed a lot during the season that they were. I'm trying to think back. It would be Higgins and Ross. They're phenomenal receivers. Big
guys too.
Yeah. So, I don't blame Ohio State with going in that philosophy. You gotta be able to adjust to it when you have to adjust to it. Now, it would have been a lot easier if Sean Wayne was still in the game through the whole game. Clemson doesn't pick them apart anywhere near as much as in the middle as they did, because that was the one thing Sean Wade was so good at last year, is he bullied that slot receiver so badly that they just, and you had a Jordan Fuller, you had just a perfect free safety that played a lot of football, understood a lot of stuff, that was your back end. He didn't have to come up at all. The only time he came up is the finish up plays when guys were already engaged into tackles and finish a play. Exactly what you expect out of a safety. And I think Sean getting kicked out of that game just did so much downhill for them, because and like I just said, you have to be able to win what you can win. So that's why you have to score the touchdowns. But when Wade got kicked out of the game, that hurt Ohio State because all that stuff that happened in the middle, it, you know, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a 60-something yard touchdown run or whatever it was. NTN, maybe he gets loose on one of the touchdowns. He doesn't get both of them.
I wouldn't think so because Sean would have been.
That second one probably doesn't even matter at the end of the day because I don't think the game's that close if Shaun Wade's still playing. So, you're
definitely taking 7 points back off the board because they're punting the ball there. So,
yeah.
And what's there, like 8 minutes left in the half at that point?
Yeah.
10, 8, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Who knows if they score a touchdown by the end of the half?
Yeah, exactly.
Ohio State very well could have scored another one on their own or got another field goal. Probably another field goal. Let's be honest.
But yeah, no. So that's just so yeah. Maybe play Sean, play Seven Banks, play man-to-man coverage on the outside, bump and run, and challenge Lawrence. I know Lawrence has got the arms, he's got the moxie to do it. I don't know if the receivers have the moxie to be able to. Because he had two better receivers last year, and they couldn't take on those Ohio State corners. So make these receivers this year on the outside beat your corners and play a better defense in the middle of the field, a zone style defense where the linebackers and the safeties are both all looking. And even if that means it takes the safety out of the reacting to an outside throw, then so be it. You do what you got to do to make sure they don't kill you in the middle of the field.
Would your base defense for this game be a nickel?
I would think so. I know that possibly that opens up some stuff for NTN, but I have enough faith in our defensive line that they can create such a clog right there that ETN's not going to have an easy time getting past them. Mm-hmm. So that should give your two linebackers the opportunity. They should be nobody on them, and that the defense line, maybe you go with a Tyler Friday and you try to clog up the middle. If you're going to go with a nickel, you got to get to the quarterback on throwing downs, but on running downs, you can't. You have to keep your two linebackers. You have to keep jerseys off of them, and so the best way to do that is your four defensive linemen just have to slog it up. And it's not necessarily about making the play for you. It's just making sure the linebacker can make the play.
Yeah, agreed. So I think I would probably feel a little bit more comfortable if they did that, so you could get a second safety in there with Williamson, instead of the three cornerbacks with the single high. But I don't know. That kind of scares me personnel. I really hope it's Proctor that gets to play, though. I saw from that guy, and I've seen, we've all seen flashes of it. I know he's over pursued and made his mistakes also, but the guy gets interceptions the best, and the guy can hammer the run better than anyone else. He's a legit dude in our secondary. It's just hasn't all come together yet.
Yeah. Now on the coaches, so what do you think? I think Ryan Day, he's a smart dude. I think Ryan Day learned a lot from last year. So I'm actually I'm really looking forward to seeing what he changes. How does he different things, and what are some of his play calls now, how he looks at a playoff game differently now as a coach than he did last year. So I saw when they were outside the red zone, he dominated Brent Venables last year. So now can he dominate him when he gets into the red zone? And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of that was Brent luring him into the red zone, where he was letting him, give him some false confidence on some of that stuff. Like, hey, this stuff works, keep using it. And then it wouldn't work inside the red zone. So yeah. I'm interested to see too, what he learned from last year. Now, I posed this question on Twitter and I got some interest. It was yes or no. So nothing really too interesting as far as responses, but just wanted to ask you that. So somehow Ohio State goes up 2 scores, and it doesn't matter what point of the game. Ryan Day would, if the option was out there for him to kick an onside kick to try to steal a possession so they could go up 3 scores. And that's all you know is Ryan Day says, Mike, I'm kicking. If I go up 2 scores, I'm kicking an onside kick. Is it too ballsy to do in a game like this? Or are you down with the aggressiveness?
I'm definitely down with the aggressiveness. I would probably go with it just to go with it. Now if they're getting field goals instead of touchdowns again, then no. I mean, it has to be 2 touchdowns that
Right. Yeah.
they have to be up 14 because, they can't be up 6 where, a touchdown giving
Right.
Clemson a touchdown.
Right.
Or even 10 where now you're going to give them momentum. Now they're only going to be 3 behind you. I would do it. I mean, it is a lot of it does take the cojones to do it because I mean you could still give them momentum back and I don't know if I would do it too early in the game. Somehow if they jumped up like out of nowhere like it was last year's game, but instead of the field goals they got 2 touchdowns out of it. There's a lot of game left. Now if it was in that third quarter and they're up by 2 scores, I might consider that because at that point if you could get up 21, and I know 7 points at that time could possibly give Clemson back the momentum for the fourth quarter, but you're in the game now. So momentum swings are not as, unless momentum swings in a close game, once you start getting into the second half aren't as a big of a deal. The momentum could still be big a deal early in the game and it could, so maybe in that third quarter, they get up 14, maybe then I go, let's try to go up 21 now. And let's see if they can basically use whatever's left of the third quarter and the fourth quarter to come back.
So what if you're in the last half of the second quarter and you're getting the ball after the half?
That's an interesting thing. I would probably consider it maybe there too, because I mean, if you're up 14, I mean, you still get the ball back first. So, even if they get the onside kick and they cut it to 7, at least you're still up by a full touchdown and you could take whatever momentum's left back to start the quarter. And if you could get it, I mean, there's a possibility that you could turn that to a 28-point game if you do get the onside kick, because you could possibly go score and then go score again. And then, if either one of these teams get up by 28, I don't care how explosive those teams are, it's going to be hard to come back out of that hole because the other team's got so many good athletes too that it's just, you're not going to make up that difference that easily.
Is there a specific spot on the field that Ryan Day better not punt within?
I don't get caught up as much of that as some people do. I mean,
that's the trust.
It's weird here. I'm saying, it's weird that here I'm saying be aggressive and go do an onside kick, but sometimes I do feel like when it comes to the punting game that you play the smart moves. And Nick Saban always made a point, and I think Nick Saban, even in a more aggressive offenses he still has the same philosophy. Every offensive possession should end in a kick, and whether that's an extra point, a field goal, or a punt. And sometimes I see some of these coaches, they go at the 50-yard line or even the 45-yard line and they're going for it. It's like 3 yards. And I'm just like, man, punt the ball and pin them and make them go drive the field. I mean, especially in a game like this where, points are the only way you're going to win games is to be aggressive, but be aggressive when it's smart to be aggressive. I mean, if it's, third and goal and you have 3 yards to go, go throw the ball or throw the ball on first down when it's goal to go. Be aggressive in those types of situations. When you're at your 50 or your 45, I mean, maybe if once we get inside the 40, if he is not as confident in the kicker, then I would say, okay, those are situations where it's 4 down territory. If you're not confident in your kicker kicking the ball at the 39-yard line, don't kick the ball. Especially if it's a makeable first down, go, go for it.
0-0, 4th and goal from the 1 yard line.
I always say on the first ones, always go for it. I
Yeah.
mean, what the hell? Make them go the 99 yards. That gives you so much confidence in your team. If you like, 4th and 1, go punch this in. And if you're not, I trust my defense that we just flip the field on them. So
Right. All right. Back to the regularly scheduled program.
yeah. Um, I think so. Just, I mean, kind of what's your thoughts? Like, just, I mean, we're kind of not really going to the three things. I think we kind of all said our three things right now. But we'll say which player, give me one offense and one defensive guy who needs to be the MVP. And Justin Fields can't be any of our picks. Who needs to be the MVP on offense? He needs to be because that's the obvious ones. Who needs to be, whether it's Trey Sermon, a receiver catching Justin Fields' ball? Who needs to be that guy on offense and who needs to be that guy on defense to win this game tomorrow?
Oh, well, I mean, I already went with the run game. So, you know, if we're gonna say one guy, I'm gonna say Josh Myers because he's in the middle of that line. So, I mean, maybe Wyatt Davis, maybe, Harry Miller or whatever other guards in there. But let's say just because he's the anchor of the three, Josh Myers has to be the guy. He has to know where everything is. He has to start getting that line moved so he gets those big holes open for Trey.
Yeah. It could be for my guy. Now there could be multiple guys in the receiving core that catch balls and play a hell of a game. To me, the guy who needs to be the big receiver is Chris Olave. He's back this week. So much of last year's game, I think, still sits with him. If he just makes the different decision, they win the game. I mean, because there's no way he drops that ball. I'm sorry.
What's crazy to me is there's a lot of people I saw on Twitter that they thought Justin made a bad throw because they thought Nolan Turner would have beat Chris Olave to the ball anyways. I'm like,
yeah,
you're crazy. He would have had, I mean, if anything, he might have broke it up, but it would have been a pass interference. Like, I don't think he could even stayed with Chris Olave.
He was behind Chris Olave, and where that ball ended up in the end zone, if Olave makes the right read, it goes right to Olave.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Turner makes a good step, but he steps kind of into Olave also. Like Olave would have burned right by him. I don't think it would have even been close.
Yeah. So I think Chris Olave, he needs I think in his mind, he needs to have some redemption and stuff like that. And I hope it comes early and often for him because that is something he needs to get that monkey off that back. He needs to get some confidence in this game. And if he gets confidence, I mean, we saw how he handled them in a lot of parts last year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we were throwing the ball great. Like I said, we just had issues once we got into the red zone. It wasn't just J.K. Dobbins that was running the ball. They were handling Ohio State's offense was handling Clemson's defense last year. And that I think if Chris Olave gets going and then you got Wilson still, I mean,
watch out.
I mean, good luck. And so that's who I'm going with is Chris Olave. So, okay, your defensive guy. What do you think?
So I'm going to say has to be Big Tommy Togiai. That's my guy in the middle. I mean, I think you could go either him or Haskell Garrett, but for the sake of this, they got to get that interior pressure. I think that's a weakness on Clemson's line. I think that's the biggest weakness of their offense. You have to exploit it. This is your best defensive lineman or your best two. So I think, you got to get that penetration, get through there. Make Lawrence uncomfortable. If you can't sack him, at least make him uncomfortable. Make him move, force him into the ends, force him to make a hard throw. I mean, Lawrence is 6'6" and he moves like a freaking gazelle back there. So the guy, he can make all the throws. He can throw over you. It's going to be very hard to get your hand up and tip, a Trevor Lawrence football, but you got to make him uncomfortable. And that's probably the easiest way, or like a blitz. I mean, I saw a couple of blitzes get to him, in LSU. Ohio State got him a couple times on a blitz. So those are ways you can do it. But I think it all starts with those two guys in the middle. And I'm going to go Tommy Togiai.
Yeah, I like that one. I think we've heard some different things about. I'm gonna go with one of the linebackers. We've heard some different things about Browning, so I'm not gonna choose Browning just because I don't know what his availability is going to be like. Um, I think I'm gonna go with Pete Warner, and the reason why I'm gonna go with Warner is like, I part of me wants to go tough too, but Warner's the better athlete out of the two of them. He's good in coverage. He's also good at coming at the quarterback if they need him to come at the quarterback. He's good at stopping the run when he needs to. He needs to be he needs to be the all-purpose linebacker tomorrow night, and that's what we need. We need if he's in coverage, he needs to be in coverage. When he's coming down to make a tackle on Etienne, or maybe they throw a blitz him as a blitzer at Lawrence, he needs to make a play on those guys. And and I'm not saying he doesn't make plays, because he makes a lot of plays, but we just need him to be. When you think about the legends of Ohio State football, all the great linebackers we have, I want Pete Warner's name at the end of it, because I want to think about, man, do you remember how good he was in that 2020, 2021, whatever this would be considered, playoff game against Clemson? I mean, the dude had 12 tackles, maybe he had a couple pass deflections. Maybe he picked one of these off. I don't know, but I want to see his stat line look so phenomenal that you just know that, they eat. I mean, I'm not going to say easily, but they beat Clemson because he was an Ohio State linebacker, and that's the guy I want to see. I think he can do it. He's a guy out of all the linebackers, even more than Browning, who's just an unbelievable athlete. I think he plays the best in both the pass game and the run game.
I would agree with that.
So I just want to see. Yeah, I just want to see Pete have a big game. And I think if he has a big game, that's going to really be a good thing for the defense.
Now, Mike, I noticed you said interception, though. This is the Sugar Bowl, Mike. Defensive ends get interceptions in this game.
Yeah. The last two Sugar Bowls, we've had a defense end get an interception. The last one was Steve Miller Band went for a pick six. If they get a pick six from Jonathan Cooper or Zach Harrison, I mean, whatever. I will be, even if they just pick off the ball, if they do that, I'll be A-okay with that one.
That'll be great. I agree.
So, I mean, we're gonna kind of finish this one up. So, just your thoughts on score. What are you going with for this game?
I've been all over the place in my head with this one. I've seen some people go like mid 40s to 50s. I think the defenses are too good for that. I know the offenses can score with anyone, but these are going to be the best defenses either one of these teams have seen. So I'm saying 35-32 Ohio State. I believe it will be 28-24 late in the game. I think Ohio State will go up 35-24. I think Clemson will score a touchdown late, get a 2-pointer late, and then Ohio State will recover the onside kick to win the game.
Okay. I like that one. Similar that to me, it's going to be a close game. I'm going with 31-28, Ohio State. And I think it's going to be a lot like last year. The last team that has the ball is going to be Ohio State, but this time around, they're going to score the touchdown. I think we'll be down 28-24, and we're going to go minute, maybe 2 minutes or whatever, and we'll win the game, and we're going to have a touchdown, and maybe it'll be Olave. Maybe he'll make the right move this year, and
I hope so.
Yeah, and just rub it in everybody's face that would have been a touchdown. But that's what I'm going to go with. I think it's going to be, I don't think, obviously, they're not going to be trading scores back and forth. Like, it's not going to be a shootout. This is going to be a very hard-fought 31-28 win for Ohio State. I'm sure you're thinking the same thing with your score. And, when you listen to those guys, the Clemson guys talk the other day, they said how much of a physical game that was last year. And it's going to be the same way this year. This is going to be a hard-hitting, physical game that's going to take a lot out of all these teams. And so that's my thought. I think that.
Yeah, real quick, because we didn't say anything about it. Tony Elliott not being there, scale of 1 to 10, how important is that?
If it was a younger quarterback, if this was okay, even if it wasn't a younger, it was more inexperienced. Tom Herman gets COVID when Cardell is going up against Alabama. I'm really nervous.
That's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, that's got me really, really scared. Trevor Lawrence, who's been around the block a lot, Not as scared. I think he can handle the game. I mean, Dabo might even let him call the game. I don't know. But like he's seen everything that's come at him. I mean, he's won a national title. He's been in another national title. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He's going to be the number one pick in the draft. I mean, the guy is just he's a smart dude. I heard him talk. I'm pretty sure he knows how to diagnose defenses. I mean, he's got all the tools, all the talent. So I right now, it's a deal, but it's like it's not a 50-50 deal to me. I think that
agree.
Clemson still, if they're going to win the game, to me, it's always going to be on Trevor Lawrence. Can he go win the game for them? And I think whether he has his offensive coordinator or not, that's, he's going to be able to do that.
I agree. So, well, yeah. I mean, Mike, we could talk all night about this. I really feel like this is something we could spend hours on and we just get excited about, but nothing else really to say. I mean,
that's why I think that's why I think we did it in a 2 type of episode show, because, I mean, both these shows are going to be about hours, we're hour long shows. So, I mean, it's just going to be, it is what it is. I mean, this is the big ones. I mean, we're going to have, hopefully we'll be, instead of breaking down a loss on, this weekend, we'll be talking about a win, and then we'll be able to do an Alabama show, because we're assuming
Notre
Alabama
Dame, or
could be Notre Dame or Notre Dame, but
let's be fair to the Irish.
I mean, if I hate to say it, knock on wood, but if it's Notre Dame, I might feel even more confident than I was even against Oregon. Like,
yeah, I think I would be there with you on that one.
So
I'm very interested to see how, because last year, those outside guys were such a focus. I'm kind of interested to see how it goes this year, even though we don't have as good as cornerbacks as last year, but to see kind of the focus go back towards the middle of the field. I'm interested to see how that plays out.
And I think that's where Ohio State needs to play, even though our corners might not be as good as what our corners were last year, their receivers aren't as good as on the outside. Right, so I think it's very easily could be the same type of matchup where we just overmatch their receivers on the outside. So I think we need to come in with a more of a focus that we need to stop the middle of the field. If by stopping the middle of the field, that's going to limit a lot that I think Clemson's going to be able to do, even with Lawrence's arm. And,
Agreed. Just good pursuit angles, good tackling. Get the guys to the ground.
Exactly. All right. I think we'll call it a night. Hope everybody has a very happy new year. Ringing in the new year. Let's hope to God 21 ends up being a lot better of 2020 than, I mean, definitely the one thankful thing I had. I know you're going to have the same thing as, my nephew was born, John's son. I mean, it's been just a pleasure having Jackson in the family now. But after Jackson, there wasn't a lot of greatness of 2020, so he took all the thunder right out the early. He's a January birthday, just like his dad and his uncle, so he took all the thunder early, and then he left a lot to be desired for the rest of the year. So
wins came out of the sails pretty quickly this year.
So hopefully the Buckeyes bring in a national title, and that's going to be our start for this year, for 2021. But regardless, we obviously wish everybody a very happy new year and a safe new year, and so everybody and all their loved ones that I just want to get this COVID stuff behind us, so we don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, happy new year to everybody. It's been a rough year. We appreciate everybody, even if you watch 10 seconds, listen to 10 seconds of our show. This is something that we've wanted to do for a while, and we're so happy that we decided to finally do it. I mean, neither one of us were displaced or furloughed or anything like that. We both were fortunate enough to keep our jobs. But I know it's been a rough year for people, so thank you everybody. Have a healthy and happy new year. Let's go Buckeyes, of course. Let's get a national title in 21. The way I see it, Mike, 2000 to 2009, we couldn't beat the SEC. 2010s, we were finally able to do that. And then in the 2010s, we couldn't beat Clemson. 2020s, we're going to be able to do that, though. So
Yeah.
let's get some big wins.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody, again, happy new year. Keep your if you had some tough breaks this year, whether it's with your health, with COVID, or a loved one's health, or with a loss of a job or something, or just the stresses and the mental anguishes that this whole thing's been, right? Just keep your chin up, and things will get better. So we'll call it a night on that.
All right, everybody. Well, tomorrow's the big one. I can't wait. I know you guys can also. So let's just kick some Clemson ass in this Sugar Bowl. Thank you for coming out tonight. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO. Go Buckeyes.
Go Buckeyes.
Well, thank you for watching here, the Buckeye Bar guys, here on the Buckeye Bar Talk Network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.